I couldn't believe it. After 24 years of marriage, with two wonderful sons excelling in college, my colleague sat in my office and suggested I pay more attention to my family life. "Listen, Bill," he said, "half the bottle. My wife and I went through rough times too. You're 46, your wife is 45. Some boredom is natural. Maybe it's nothing, but as a friend, I thought you should know. Last Thursday night, when you were out of town, I saw Sally leaving the Hilton Hotel, arm in arm, with some guy, late at night. I was stunned. I had the perfect American life. A wonderful wife, great kids, a good job, a luxurious home. Everything seemed perfect. Sally and I never even looked at other people. We built a wonderful home and spent 24 years creating something our friends envied. We kept in shape, and I thought we loved each other more than ever. Sure, we had a few arguments, but they were rare. Sometimes we spent a lot of time with the kids and work, but I thought that's what we wanted for a good future. Last Thursday night during dinner, I called her from the road, and she said she was going to curl up with a good book. I couldn't get the image out of my head. I felt physically set. I started mentally reviewing the past year, wondering if her behavior had changed, or when she could have had an affair. I couldn't think of anything specific. She had been working harder lately due to a company reorganization. I realized our intimacy had decreased recently, from a few times a week to sometimes only once every 2 weeks. I hadn't even noticed. I guess we'd gotten comfortable. I went to my friend's office and asked if he could identify the man. He reluctantly agreed to help. Shortly before noon, we drove across town to Sally's office building. We waited by the elevators. The doors opened, and Sally stepped out with a well-built man in his 40s. "Bill?" she stammered, blushing. "What are you doing here?" "I was just going to lunch with Mr. Bates, my new boss. I told you about him." I shook Mr. Bates's hand and introduced my friend. I turned to Sally, saying we were nearby, and I wanted to say hello and give her a kiss. I hugged her and tried to kiss her, but she turned her head at the last moment, so I kissed her cheek. Sally said they had a business meeting to get to, and thanked me for stopping by, saying she'd see me at home. Back in the car, my friend confirmed Mr. Bates was the man he saw her with. I watched them drive off in the opposite direction. I drove to the Hilton parking garage and found Mr. Bates's Lexus parked there. Doubt, like a giant oak tree, took root in my mind. I decided not to confront Sally immediately. I would try harder to be a good husband and ask her if everything was okay, while keeping my eyes open for lies. I couldn't believe the person I loved most, trusted with my life, and wanted to grow old with, was someone I now suspected of deceit. For the next month, I was attentive, bringing flowers, romantic dinners when possible, visiting our sons. Our first son looked like me, tall, dark-haired. Our younger son, 19, was shorter, blonde, built like a wrestler. Was our entire 24-year marriage a lie? Was our entire 24-year marriage a lie? Was I raising another man's child? I loved my boys dearly, but the doubt festered. 6 weeks after my friend's warning, I decided I needed the truth. That evening, I asked Sally if she was okay, if she wanted to talk, expressing my fear she was drifting away, and my deep love for her. She looked guilty for a moment, but quickly hid it, saying everything was fine. She was just busy with work and missed the boys. She never said she loved me back. I hugged her and whispered that I loved her. She sat stiffly, ignoring the tears in my eyes. She had her chance to be honest, to reaffirm our 24 years of trust. She didn't take it. I needed concrete proof. I pretended to have a 3-day business trip. I was sure if she was unfaithful, she'd take advantage of my absence. I left Tuesday morning, saying I'd see her Friday. I rented an inconspicuous car and watched our house. Just after 8 p.m., Mr. Bates drove up and walked straight into our house without knocking. My heart broke. After a few minutes, Sally came out with him, locking the door. She was wearing a short black cocktail dress I'd bought her recently, which she'd never worn for me. They drove to the Hilton. I followed. They went to the lounge bar. I saw them dancing intimately, his hands on her hips, her leaning close. I felt rage, but held back. I watched them go to the elevators, and saw the indicator stop on the 6th floor. I booked the room next door, 609. I heard muffled noises from room 607, but couldn't make out specifics. Room service arrived. Later, talking to the bellhop in the hall, he mentioned they were regulars, coming once or twice a week, always taking the same corner suite with the hot tub. Seeing them leave around midnight, I felt devastated. I went home, supposedly out of town, and searched Sally's things. In a box labeled Sally's old clothes in the garage, I found devastating evidence. Love letters from 3 different men, including Mr. Bates, and old Polaroid photos. One showed Sally on a boat, with a nude muscular blonde man, Frank, a former boss of hers, looking young, dating between our sons' births. Others showed them in various compromising situations. Worse, Frank looked exactly like my younger son. There were similar photos and letters with another man, a salesman from her company, from about 7 years prior. My world crumbled. I waited near home. Around 12:30 a.m., Mr. Bates dropped Sally off. I followed him home, to an upscale neighborhood. Back at the hotel, I planned my revenge. I decided if she wanted other men, she'd get more than she bargained for, while I ensured I kept everything I'd worked for in the divorce. I would destroy Sally and the men involved. Next morning, I approached Anthony, a man in our maintenance department, with a criminal past, who was trying to rebuild his life. I offered him $500 to help. After hearing my plan, he agreed. That evening, I called Sally, telling her I loved her, giving her one last chance to confess or cancel her plans with Mr. Bates. She didn't respond to my declaration. I watched as Mr. Bates picked her up at 8 p.m. and took her to the Hilton. Anthony and 2 of his ex-con friends followed them. I paged Mr. Bates using his boss's number and 911, implying urgency. He left the lounge to call, then drove off, leaving Sally alone. Anthony and his friends approached Sally at her table, trapping her. They had slipped a drug into her drink. Soon, she was incapacitated. They took her keycard and, half carrying her, led her from the lounge to the elevators. One friend filmed everything. That was the last I saw of her, until my return. The next day, Anthony came to my office. He handed me a videotape and explained what happened after I left. He described how they took advantage of Sally's drugged state throughout the night in the hotel room. Mr. Bates briefly returned, saw what was happening, and fled in horror. Anthony mentioned Sally was eventually found semi-conscious in an alley by police, arrested for public intoxication and solicitation. He implied she seemed to respond physically at times, but emphasized it was non-consensual due to the drugs. I felt a mix of guilt, rage, and satisfaction. I edited the video, adding a title, Sally the Housewife Gangbanged, and a distorted voiceover introduction, framing it as her choice. I made copies and distributed them secretly to adult sections of video stores near our home and her office. I mailed copies to my son's fraternity and a known gossip at Sally's company. I wanted everyone to see the truth. I met Mr. Bates for lunch at the Hilton. Confronting him with the love letters and photos, I threatened to tell his wife. He apologized, claimed Sally initiated the affair, and promised fidelity. He described what he saw when he briefly returned to the room, confirming Anthony's story. My final demand was that he call Sally and end things cruelly. Call her a worthless slut, say he only pitied her, and fire her. He made the call from a payphone, with me listening. He was brutal, calling her disgusting names, firing her, and hanging up. I heard Sally crying before the line went dead. I drove home from my trip. Sally was curled up in bed, claiming she felt sick. I pretended concern, offering soup. She mentioned quitting her job. When I feigned surprise, referencing Mr. Bates, she ran from the room crying. That night I called Anthony again. I wanted Sally to suffer more for seeming to enjoy aspects of the assault. I paid him $200 more to take her to a dangerous crack house. He reluctantly agreed, warning me it was bad. The next morning, I left for work. Anthony approached Sally at home. After showing her the video to ensure compliance, he pressured her into intimacy. He then took her, dressed only in lingerie under her robe, to a notorious crack den, run by Big Willie in a bad part of town. He traded her car keys to Willie for them to keep her supplied with drugs over the weekend. He left her there, knowing police were planning a raid on Sunday. I reported Sally and her car missing. On Sunday, police arrived at my house with a search warrant related to drugs. They informed me Sally had been found naked and high in a drug den during a raid, arrested for possession. They expressed sympathy, seeing me as the shocked husband. Shortly after, Sally's friend Nancy called, saying Sally wanted bail, but she couldn't help anymore after seeing the video. Her social life was crumbling. I visited Sally in county jail. She looked terrible in an orange jumpsuit, bruised and dirty. She begged for help, claiming it was a mistake and she'd been assaulted. I coldly told her I knew everything about her affairs. I called her a slut who couldn't be raped because she couldn't say no. I declared she was no longer my wife and told her to rely on the courts. As I left, another inmate ominously threatened her. I ignored her desperate pleas. Sally was now alone, disgraced, facing serious charges, and abandoned by everyone who once cared for her. My revenge was complete, leaving me with complex emotions, satisfaction mixed with lingering pain and concern for my sons amidst the ruins of our family.